Tonight, the mother of the star witness for the prosecution and a man known as the Punisher take the stand in the Diddy trial. Cassie Ventura's mom, Regina, testifies about her daughter's bruised body and the picture she took after Diddy allegedly beat Cassie, saying she wanted to memorialize it. The jury also hearing testimony where they found guns on shelves alongside baby oil inside Diddy's home. Tonight, the major turn in that stunning jailbreak. A jail worker charged with helping 10 inmates escape, and more workers are now suspected of aiding the escape. The announcement from President Trump today about a Golden Dome, a missile defense system to surround the U.S. But is this even feasible? Martha Raddatz is standing by. They are not numbers, they are human beings. That's the message from doctors inside Gaza tonight. Our gut-wrenching report on the catastrophic hunger affecting nearly 500,000 people. Remembering actor George Wendt.
How you doing, Norm?
Cut the small talk and give me a beer.
A classic comedy where everybody knew his name. It was stolen nearly 4 decades ago from his grave. Tonight, how authorities tracked down the bust of legendary Doors musician Jim Morrison. And actress Elizabeth Banks is here to talk about her newest project and the advice she has for college grads on the heels of addressing UPenn graduates just yesterday. What would have been the best piece of advice that you could have received as a college grad?
They can only say no, so ask for what you want.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin with the trial of Sean Diddy Combs here in New York. After Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura testified for 4 days, today her mother took the stand ostensibly to corroborate her daughter's tales of alleged abuse. She testified that Combs threatened to release sex tapes and demanded tens of thousands of dollars to recoup money that he had spent on Cassie Ventura. Ventura's mother, Regina, going so far as to take out a loan to pay Combs. Today, the jury also saw photos that Regina Ventura took of her daughter's bruises after Combs allegedly flew into a jealous rage upon learning that Cassie was dating another man. ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona and chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky are both standing by to discuss the day's other testimony, including from a sex worker nicknamed the Punisher and a former personal assistant to Combs. But first, we begin with Aaron at the courthouse.
On the 7th day of testimony at the sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Combs, the mother of his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, told the jury she took these photos of bruises she said Combs inflicted on her daughter after finding out she was dating another man. She was bruised, and I wanted to make sure that we memorialized it. Regina Ventura testified her daughter told her she was being blackmailed. Cassie sent her mom this email saying Combs is going to release 2 explicit sex tapes of me. He has also said that he will be having someone hurt me and Scott Mescudi, the rapper known as Kid Cudi, who Ventura had started to date. I was physically sick, Ventura's mother said. The sex tapes threw me. She testified Combs demanded $20,000 to recoup money that he had spent on Cassie. I was scared for my daughter's safety, she told the jury, so she took out a home equity loan to secure the money and wired it according to instructions sent by Combs's bookkeeper. A few days later, she said the money was sent back. The defense did not cross-examine Cassie's mother, and she walked off the witness stand glaring at Combs.
Imagine she stated a few of her thoughts there on the witness stand. Aaron Katursky joins us now from outside the courthouse. Aaron, we also heard more testimony from Diddy's former assistant and an escort named the Punisher. What did he have to say?
This man, Sharray Hayes, said, Linsey, that he was part of freak-offs 8 to 12 times, and he described their gradual escalation from simply rubbing baby oil on one another with Cassie Ventura to where they actually ended up having sex. And he said on one occasion that he saw Cassie Ventura wince and heard her sigh as Sean Combs was giving directions. But he testified on cross-examination that it didn't appear to him that there was any discomfort with what Ventura was doing, Linsey.
And we're also hearing another notable name could testify as soon as tomorrow. Any inkling as far as who that could be?
Grammy-winning rapper Kid Cudi could testify as soon as tomorrow, Linsey. Remember, he was dating Cassie Ventura. That's why she said Sean Combs got so angry, beat her up. You saw the photos that her mother said she took. And the email that Cassie Ventura wrote her mom being scared about blackmail, about Sean Combs releasing sexually explicit videotapes after he caught wind of the relationship. Ventura also said something else, that Sean Combs threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car. So we expect to hear testimony about that when he takes the witness stand. Lindsay?
Oh, very interesting. Aaron Katersky for us. Thanks so much, Aaron. Let's bring in attorney and ABC News contributor Bernarda Villalona. And Bernarda, you have been in court regularly. Tell us what stood out to you today.
Oh, my God. Today was like a roller coaster of emotions. We went from funny to sad to crying to just with open eyes, talking about violence and guns in the lap of Sean Combs. So we were all over the place. But in terms of what stood out the most is, of course, the testimony from mom. For mom to say that she was so scared for the life of her daughter that she went and took out a home equity loan for $20,000 in order to give that to Sean Combs. Miraculously, a few days later, that money was returned. But the fear that she had, that she was able to put her house on the line in order to send this to Sean Combs, I think sends a big message. And the jury was definitely taking a lot of notes when she testified to that fact. But she was so emotional, understand the defense didn't bother to do any cross-examination. But then again, it would have looked bad for them to be crossing a mom who clearly was hurt.
So you were not surprised at all by no cross on
I wasn't surprised because in terms of what you were going to get out of her, you may have turned off the jury because they are already conceding that Cassie was struck and hit multiple times by Sean Combs. So what are you going to get out of mom?
Okay, let's try and understand the story involving testimony with regard to Diddy potentially getting back with Suge Knight, getting back at him.
So that's when the jury was taking a lot of notes because if you, of course, grew up in this rap era, you've always known about the beef with the West Coast and the East Coast and Suge Knight and Biggie Smalls and Sean Combs. Yep. Yeah, so you've known all about this. But to finally get confirmation from Mr. James that testified that when he returned back to the house after spotting Suge Knight at a diner, when he came back to the house, that Sean Combs got in the car, when he looked back, he had 3 guns in his lap and he was like, expletive, just go, to try to get to that diner, to get to Suge Knight, in possession, of course, with firearms there. And that's actually, Mr. James says, that's when he knew he had to quit, and he quit after that.
And there was also testimony that they found AR-15s in his house right alongside baby oil?
Yeah. So the last witness that testified was one of the agents from Homeland Security that executed this search warrant in Sean Combs' Miami home. Was interesting to note that this agent said they were strategic as to when they executed the search warrant. Usually they execute search warrants around 6 in the morning, but that he had gotten information that Sean Combs was going to be traveling that day. So they waited until he exited the home with his family in order to execute that search warrant. But yes, there were 2 AR-15s. They were broken up, of course. They weren't in one piece, that were recovered from inside of this closet that also had the baby oil and the Astro Glide and the 7-inch stiletto platform heels all in one closet. So again, confirmation, corroboration from what we heard already.
And what are you expecting from Kid Cudi tomorrow?
So Kid Cudi is actually going to give us that racketeering conspiracy part, because remember, for racketeering conspiracy, the prosecutor has to prove 2 racketeering predicate acts, and one of those acts is arson. So from Kid Cudi, what the prosecution is hoping to get, that Sean Combs had Kid Cudi's car blown up. And remember from Cassie's testimony that there was a meeting after the fact and that Sean Combs was pretty much saying, what car? So this is where the prosecution is going. They're trying to get those predicate acts in order to get the racketeering conspiracy. Today, they try to get the criminal enterprise, and now they're going with acts.
Do you feel that the prosecution is making its case?
They're getting there. They're getting there. The prosecution hasn't solidified their case, not through just one witness. It's all about building witness on top of witness on top of witness and getting different types of evidence from each of these witnesses. It's an 8-week trial. We're only in week 2. So little by little, the prosecution is hoping to get there.
All right. And you will be with us every step of the way. Bernarda, thank you so much, as always. Next tonight, to new information about former President Biden's cancer diagnosis. A spokesperson said today the last time Biden got a PSA test was 10 years ago. Here's ABC's chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
Tonight, as former President Biden battles incurable stage 4 prostate cancer, his spokesman revealed the last time Biden got a PSA test for the disease was more than 10 years ago, in 2014. The spokesperson saying, quote, prior to Friday, President Biden had never been diagnosed with prostate cancer. It was Sunday the world learned that the former president has cancer and that it has spread to his bones. Biden is 82 years old, and medical experts say PSA tests are not typically recommended for men older than 70. Among that age group, when prostate cancer is found, it is often serious.
I would say on average, if I see patients at this age, it's a common scenario that they're diagnosed with advanced disease because very often their PSA was no longer being checked. They were no longer undergoing screening.
One question many are asking tonight, should presidents be tested more frequently? The White House says President Trump, who is 78, had a PSA test last month.
President Trump traveled to Capitol Hill today, where more than a dozen Republicans are still a no on the president's, as he calls it, one big beautiful bill to fund his agenda. Sources say he used expletives to warn conservative holdouts to not mess around with Medicaid and told holdouts who want higher tax deductions to take the deal and move on. Tonight, can Speaker Johnson meet his own Memorial Day deadline? ABC's Jay O'Brien is on Capitol Hill for us. Hey, Jay, give us the state of play here.
Yeah, Lindsay, President Trump coming here to Capitol Hill to personally pressure those Republican holdouts to pass his domestic agenda, now officially called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It includes an extension of Trump's 2017 tax cuts, a lifting of federal income tax on tips and overtime, and about $50 billion to renew construction of a border wall. It also includes cuts to Medicaid, but some GOP lawmakers pushing for steeper cuts tonight. President Trump's message to them, we're told, according to sources in the room, was don't mess with Medicaid, although we're told he used a different word there. And he also threatened Republicans who would not vote for this legislation that they, quote, wouldn't be a Republican much longer. But even still tonight, Lindsay, Speaker Johnson having to deal with more than a dozen holdouts, enough to tank the bill, with a vote expected as soon as tomorrow. Lindsay.
Could be a slim margin there. Jay, our thanks to you. And tonight, President Trump has revealed his plans for a Golden Dome, a missile defense system to surround the U.S. What would it do? How much will it cost? And can it even work? Our chief global affairs anchor Martha Raddatz reports.
Tonight, President Trump's dream of an Iron Dome for America is official. The so-called Golden Dome missile shield, which could cost more than $175 billion, would be designed to protect the U.S. from the growing threat from boosted hypersonic weapons, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and land attack cruise missiles.
Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space.
The U.S. already has existing interceptors in Alaska and California for intercontinental ballistic missiles launched from North Korea or Iran. But this system would use not only ground-based interceptors, but space-based technology as well, which could potentially detect and intercept the missiles.
This is very important for the success and even survival of our country.
Trump has praised Israel's Iron Dome, which shielded Israel from the majority of missiles launched from Hamas and the Houthis, but those were smaller weapons.
So now they say that there is a threat of more dangerous weapons. Martha Raddatz joins us now. Martha, are people you're talking to at all skeptical that such an enormous defense system would even be feasible?
Well, I do think they think it's feasible. It may take longer than 3 years for it to be completed. I think that is a pretty optimistic estimate that President Trump gave. But the defense secretary says this will be phased in, integrated into systems already that we have on the ground. And they are very optimistic that it will work eventually. Lindsay?
All right, Martha Raddatz for us. Thanks so much, Martha. Nearly 40 million people are under severe weather threats, and many areas were already hit hard. New surveillance video shows the moment a confirmed EF4 tornado with 170-mile-per-hour winds struck the airport in London, Kentucky. ABC's chief meteorologist Ginger Z has more on where this storm system is heading next. Hey, Ginger.
Hey, Lindsay. So we're watching several active tornado warnings and watches that are on the map right now, all the way from just east of Champaign, Illinois, that's headed into Indiana, but also down to, south of Greenville. There are several warnings. You see them in the red. That means that there's an imminent tornado, but there are plenty of severe thunderstorms outside of that along that line. That's all with the cold front from this system that's going to keep marching east. I do anticipate that eastern Kentucky and Tennessee will get a watch here in the next hour or so. London and Knoxville, that means you at 9 o'clock. East of Huntsville, that line goes, and then it'll start to lose a little power after midnight, and it will wrap up and become more of a shower thunderstorm activity that wakes everybody up in Washington, D.C., throughout parts of eastern Virginia. Philadelphia gets some of the heavier rain showers by late morning, and then we'll feel it in New York. Watch what happens, though. This low pressure system comes and reinforces this, starts to twist it up right along the coast, and what looks just like a nor'easter, you get those winds plowing into Boston Thursday, 5 p.m. with the heavy rain, too, and that could impact some of that big holiday travel. Lindsay.
All right. Pack your patience for sure. Ginger, our thanks to you. The Justice Department has charged a New Jersey congresswoman with assaulting federal agents during a clash outside a Newark immigration detention center. Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver says she looks forward to defending herself in court after being charged by the Trump administration and accuses them of trying to intimidate her. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus, including Cory Booker, rallied behind her at the Capitol, calling the charges politically motivated. And after that horrific scene involving a Mexican Navy ship colliding into the Brooklyn Bridge, the Mexican Navy secretary now claims it was not the ship's crew in control of the vessel at the time. The harbor pilot, who's a specialized navigator for local waterways, was guiding the ship Saturday night when it struck the bridge, leaving 19 injured and 2 dead. The NTSB is now investigating who exactly was at the helm and what led to the crash. A jail worker has been arrested in the stunning jailbreak in Louisiana. What authorities say he did and what that jail worker claims an inmate said he would do to him if he didn't help. ABC's Faith Abube in New Orleans again for us tonight.
Tonight, a maintenance worker at the New Orleans jail where 10 inmates escaped all at once, now charged with helping in the scheme.
He made a bad choice. It's going to change his life forever.
Sterling Williams accused of shutting off the water before inmates dislodged a toilet and crawled out through a hole in the wall Friday morning. The inmates allegedly leaving behind the message, "Too easy, LOL." A court affidavit says Williams told investigators an inmate threatened to shank him if he refused.
I don't think that he had to do any of the things that he did. If he was under threat, then he certainly should have brought that to someone else's attention.
Overnight, authorities swarming this residential area just minutes from the jail, taking an inmate into custody. And just moments ago, arresting another. 5 inmates remain at large. Authorities now looking at these new surveillance videos first obtained by ABC News, showing 3 inmates in an alley 1 hour after that escape, still dressed in their jail uniforms. One of those fugitives, convicted killer Derek Groves, sentenced to life in prison.
He's proven he's willing to kill. He's proven he's willing to take risks. He's proven that he does not care about anybody except for himself.
Tonight, officials say prosecutors who oversaw Groves' cases have left the area with their families, and witnesses and victims have also been placed in protection for their safety.
Thanks to Faith Abube. Police are looking into a break-in at the home of Blackish and Law & Order actor Anthony Anderson. Investigators are searching for a burglary crew who they say targeted Anderson's home in Encino, California. Authorities say 3 men broke into the house when no one else was there. No word just yet on what was stolen. Police say the suspects are targeting large, expensive homes. It is the latest of several high-profile break-ins in the Los Angeles area. The FDA is now limiting future access to COVID vaccines. The vaccine will be limited to people 65 and older and those with underlying health conditions. The agency's top officials say that the benefits of routine boosters for young, healthy individuals remains uncertain. The change, they say, would align U.S. guidance with countries like the U.K. and Canada. Moving forward, vaccine makers will now need to prove benefits for younger groups. And still ahead, a teen girl is saved by a man with a drone. How he used quick thinking to turn it into a rescue device. The fight to stay alive in the face of growing starvation. We go inside the dire hunger crisis in Gaza.
Siwar is facing severe, critical situation. If she doesn't take the suitable formula of milk, unfortunately, she will not survive.
Welcome back, everyone. Following Israel's nearly 3-month-long blockade of Gaza, the UN and other aid groups still operating there warn that hundreds of thousands of people are facing catastrophic hunger. 93 supply trucks were allowed over the border today, but the UN said none of that aid actually made it to the Palestinians who desperately need it. And with Israel's new ground operation and bombing campaign in full swing, they call it Chariots of Gideon. There is concern the situation in Gaza will only get worse. We'll talk to an advisor to Israel's prime minister shortly. But first, here's our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, with this report from Gaza.
اطبخ اليوم مش عارف ايش بدي اطبخ ما فيش عندي خشب انا مش عارف ايش اسوي شوف فين بقى بكيلو خشب لا بقيت اخذ الراتب 10 قلت اسبوع كلش غالي كثير برضه.
Rima Shaw is no stranger to poverty. Like most Palestinians in Gaza, it was a fact of life before the war. But now, staying alive is a daily struggle.
يعني احنا هو الحرب بدنا اكثر من سنتين كمان هو كمان انا عشت بالمر اصلا يعني من قبل كمان الحرب انا وضع بالمر بقى على شكل شلون بقى عايشين وكيف الحين من دون شكل شلون ايش بده يصير فينا الحين موت بطيء.
Israel imposed a total blockade 11 weeks ago. All food, fuel and medicine supplies stopped. The World Central Kitchen ran out of food. All of the World Food Programme's Lifeline bakeries shut down. The sparse market stalls taunts the hungry and the poor. Desperate cries ring out from desperate children and parents who line up daily with empty pots in hope of a little food for the day.
من اللحوم والبيض والسمك والدجاج والخضار ما فيش شيء والقرع قد ايه الكيلو هذا قد ايه الكيلو 30 والله غالي بقى 5 شيء كل شيء غالي اسعار غاليه يعني مش شايف شيء في السوق.
Reem struggles to live on what little she can afford and find. But the hunger crisis in Gaza is so severe that a dark Darwinian reality has set in. And now Reem's own grandchild is battling to stay alive. Siwara Shaw was born a small but healthy baby girl 6 months ago today. But now she's fighting for life at the Nasser Medical Center. A hospital repeatedly bombed by Israel in its pursuit of what it says are terrorists in hiding. Siwa's tiny body is wrapped in plastic, her weight loss so severe she can no longer regulate her own body temperature.
بسبب يعني السكر المعابر صار دهورة الحوامل يعني في شيء غذاء في شيء يعني إمكانية يعني الأطفال صار ينولدوا ضعف الكالسيوم معاهم ونقص غذاء يعني من اللحوم ومن الأسماك يعني بقتش يعني هي حامل تتغذى يعني ما فيش شيء.
In between hunting for food, Reem also stands vigil at her granddaughter's bedside.
من المستشفى والحليب هذا معين لها حليب هذا علاج وما فيش حليب زيه مقطوع عندك في قطاع غزة هذا غير من برا نجيب الحليب العلاج هذا.
The family says Israel's relentless bombing has forced them to move multiple times. The stress of war meant Siwa's mother couldn't lactate, so her baby was fed just water. And now at 6 months old, Siwa weighs just over 7 pounds. That's less than half that of an average American baby girl.
Siwar is facing severe critical situation. If she doesn't take the suitable formula of milk, unfortunately she will not survive.
Nearly 500,000 people in Gaza are facing catastrophic hunger, according to a report by 17 UN agencies and NGOs. Israel has disputed aid agency figures and says their warnings have been wrong before. Under pressure from allies, Israel has now agreed to allow some aid in, approving more than 100 trucks into Gaza, but it's a tiny fraction of what's needed. And it'll mean little to Gaza's starving children, as the most vulnerable succumb to the spiralling humanitarian crisis. Rahaf Ayad is 12 years old, a young girl reduced to skin and bone.
هذه حقوق الأطفال من حقها زي بقية أطفال العالم إنهم يعيشوا يلعبوا فبنتي أنا لما بتطلع فيها هيك بحس بقهر من جواتي أنا مش قادرة أعمل لها إشي أنا خايفة بنتي تموت بين إيديا وأنا مش قادرة أعمل لها إشي
She became sick during the war and severely malnourished during the blockade. A lack of equipment and resources mean doctors have been unable to successfully treat her. Rahaf's skin is covered in lesions. Her hair is falling out. She spends most of her day weak, bound to a grey mattress on the floor.
مطرح المفاصل البنت من ضعف المناعة وسوء التغذية هيك زي التآكل فبتقدرش تسند حالها فبتاكل وبتنام وإما غير تاخدها على الحمام وتمشي.
Since Israel broke the ceasefire with Hamas on March 18th, it's bombed relentlessly. More than 3,000 have been killed, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. The blocking of aid into the Strip is also meant to pressure Hamas into releasing 58 hostages who are also still being held in Gaza. Less than 24 are presumed alive. Now, Israel has launched another major offensive. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowing to destroy Hamas, who kidnapped, raped and murdered more than 1,200 people in Israel on October 7th, 2023. And caught in the crosshairs, Rahaf and her family make do, with the world as they knew it crumbling around them.
للولاد يعني على البابور حياتنا كلها كان وهباب فهند المكان كله بتهبب وهند بعمل لي كمان مشاكل بتعرف تهد هي فحاول قد ما اقدر ان اقلم حالي واقلم ان على الوضع هذا بالتعب تعب إلنا تقريبا سنة ونص بنعاني أقلمنا حالنا على شغلات كتيرة بس الواحد تعب نفسيا صارت الحياة صعبة كل يوم عن يوم بتزداد سوء.
Rahaf's mom says doctors think the illness may be coming from her kidneys.
الحرب هذا اللي احنا كناش متعودين عليه فجسمها ما تقبلش هذه الأكلات ولا إيش اتعايش مع المية الملوثة فعملها إيش التهابات في الكلى شديدة وإيش نتج عنه إنه الحالة اللي هي فيها البنت وبالإضافة اللي عندها سوء تغذية.
Shortly after we saw her, she was evacuated to the UAE for treatment. A chance at life.
يعني احنا في غد تغاد بنموت من الجوع بنموت من الخوف الوضع عندنا كتير صعب بعيشوا في مجاعات كان وضعنا مأساوي كتير.
But what she'll return to is uncertain. As the war rages into its second year, the kids at the NASA malnutrition ward are on the brink. A tiny squeal of protest is all baby Siwa can manage. Her family must hope and pray someone hears her.
So many heart-wrenching stories. Our thanks to Ian Pannell for that. Joining us now is Caroline Glick. She's an international affairs advisor to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. As we heard in Ian Pannell's reporting, 500,000 people in Gaza are facing catastrophic hunger. That's according to more than a dozen UN agencies and NGOs. Do you accept their assessment that people in Gaza are starving?
No, I don't. I don't at all accept their assessment. We have our finger on the pulse in Gaza on a daily, in fact, multiple times a day basis. And that's not the indications that we're getting. We are getting assessments that it is becoming dangerous. And as a result, we reinstated humanitarian aid trucks that have been entering Gaza after cessation for a while. And no, that's not what we're getting. What we are getting is a lot of Hamas propaganda that's being pumped out and manufactured and supported by the UN and various NGOs for no apparent reason that I can understand, because they're being built by Hamas, which steals the aid that they're donating to the people of Gaza to give out for free.
And so you said you do not accept that assessment that people in Gaza are starving. So what are you basing your assessment on?
The facts are difficult to avoid. We have provided 92,000 lorries, truckloads of supplies to Gaza since October 7th. During the cessation of operations, during the hostage swap from January, we transferred 25,000 truckloads of supplies into Gaza. That included 8,000 calories per day per person in Gaza, enough to last them for weeks on end, when the average calorie intake per person is 2,000. So Israel is providing the aid, Hamas is hijacking the aid, and then selling it to the people of Gaza and blaming Israel for suffering that it induces, and then the international community which is supposed to be angry at Hamas for stealing the aid that they're donating, is then joining Hamas and pointing the finger at Israel, the side that's providing all of the aid to the people of Gaza.
Okay, so Israel, obviously, the aim is to keep aid out of the hands of Hamas. It sounds that we can agree that what you're saying is happening is just basic supply and demand. As a spokesperson for the UN said today, the less aid there is, the more likely it'll end up on the black market and then into the hands of Hamas. So what is the ultimate solution then, as far as for the people of Gaza?
So the ultimate solution is the exact solution that Israel is implementing together with the U.S. government, and that's supposed to be fully implemented in about a week or so, which is that we're replacing Hamas as a means for distributing the aid with the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, which is being manned by U.S. contractors that are going to be handing out all of the food supplies and medical supplies and everything the Gazans need in hubs that are controlled militarily by Israel. And that's the way both to defeat Hamas as the regime in Gaza and also to protect the people of Gaza from Hamas.
And so your government said that 93 trucks crossed into Gaza today, but the UN says that very little of that aid made its way to warehouses and delivery points. Are you saying the breakdown is entirely Hamas?
Yes, and I would actually add the UN to the list of people who should have fingers pointed at them, because the UN itself has allowed Hamas total control over its stores, just as it has over its schools and its clinics. The UN has acted hand in glove with Hamas, in Gaza. So we're talking about an organization that has zero credibility on this or any other issue dealing with Hamas, because they have actually been cooperating openly with Hamas throughout this war.
I just want to go back to one point before I let you go. I was just looking it up, and the UN says that it does condemn Hamas's actions and violence, particularly attacks on civilians. There are a number of facts I could rattle off that kind of fly in the face of your suggestion that they have zero credibility. And so what would you say to those critics who are saying that the United Nations is actually trying to be about bringing about peace in this scenario?
I would ask them where the body of the Israeli hostage that they stole from Israel on October 7th is located, and I would ask them to give it to Israel. I would ask them to do that as, just a first step. I would ask them to stop inciting genocide, the annihilation of the Jewish people and the Jewish state from the school books that UNRWA teaches 2/3 of the children of Gaza from. I would ask them to explain themselves. And I want to know where the credibility of the UN comes from, except from platitudes and from propaganda, because on the ground, they have not been helping. They've been helping Hamas, not peace.
Caroline Glick, International Affairs Advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Coming up, kangaroo on the loose, and it's not in Australia, but here in the U.S. And the surprising reason why grocery stores play music while you shop. Welcome back, everyone. Have you ever found yourself grocery shopping and humming along to the background music in the store? It's probably happened, right? It could be that the one song you forgot about from decades ago or a popular song from today, but there is a science behind how the music you hear at stores or other businesses can actually get you to stay and buy more. Let's face the music. By the numbers. Shoppers spent 10% more in stores with music. That's according to a 2022 study from the University of Bath in England, though that only applies on weekdays. So why might that be? A study from MRC Data and Soundtrack found 79% of respondents said that they listen to background music when they visit a business like a grocery store. That same study found 41% of those respondents would stay longer in a business if they enjoyed the music. And 39% said that they would be more likely to return. Meanwhile, research from Mood Media, which creates playlists for stores, found that 77% of respondents would be more likely to wait in line to buy something if the store was playing engaging music. As for the best music to play, that depends on the type of store, location, and many other factors. Interestingly, a 2017 study from BI Norwegian Business School found playing faster-paced music from Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift in crowded stores actually increased sales there. Still ahead, a musical mystery finally solved: how a bus stolen from singer Jim Morrison's grave was found nearly 4 decades later. And Elizabeth Banks is here to tell us about her new thriller series, The Better Sister, what it was like to star alongside Jessica Biel. car drives onto a taxiway at an airport. A girl is saved from drowning by a quick-thinking man with a drone, and where an escaped kangaroo was captured. These stories and more in tonight's rundown.
A security breach at Buffalo Niagara International Airport. Police say a driver intentionally crashed through a gate, gaining access to the secure area before crossing onto a taxiway, then an active runway. The suspect was arrested in 6 minutes. So far, no word on a possible motive as the FBI joins the investigation. Flights were not affected.
I was shaking pretty bad. It was nerve-wracking. I about cried.
Andrew Smith says he was fishing on Pensacola Beach, Florida, when he spotted a swimmer struggling in a rip current about 100 yards offshore.
And this girl came running asking if anybody could swim, and I said, no, I absolutely cannot swim.
That's when Smith grabbed his drone, tying a flotation device to it and flying it out to the teenage girl.
I lowered it until you could see her hands grab it, and then I lowered it a little more and I released it, and then she climbed on it and started like floating.
The girl was able to use the flotation device until first responders arrived. That life-saving rescue now prompting other public safety officials to look into using drones as lifeguards. While much of the creative world still figures out what to do about AI, Hollywood director Darren Aronofsky is embracing it to, quote, visualize the unseen. The Black Swan and Mother director announced the launch of an AI-driven studio venture he's calling Primordial Soup as part of a partnership with Google's AI DeepMind. The first short film offering, called Ancestra, will blend live action with generative AI. The film will screen at the Tribeca Film Festival. Jennifer Lopez is being sued by a photographer and paparazzi agency Backgrid for copyright infringement after the singer posted 2 copyrighted photographs of herself without permission that were taken at a Golden Globes party. The plaintiffs are seeking $300,000 in damages. Lopez faced a similar complaint in 2019. She has not yet commented on this suit. The long-lost bust of the Doors singer Jim Morrison has finally been recovered. Police in France found the bust nearly 4 decades after it was stolen from his grave in Paris. They say it was found by chance during an unrelated fraud investigation. Morrison died in 1971. No word if the bust will be returned to the gravesite.
We have the kangaroo detained.
You heard that right. In Colorado, Durango police spotted this kangaroo named Irwin in a neighbor's yard. Officer Garrison catching the lost marsupial and carrying him away. This was the kangaroo's second time escaping from his home. The first time was last October. Police awarding Irwin the title of Durango's most unexpected repeat offender.
You could soon see some of your favorite NFL superstars playing flag football for an Olympic gold. The NFL's owners approved letting players compete in the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, where flag football will make its debut. While final details are being worked out, the NFL is proposing a limit of 1 player per team and asking for safety measures and schedule coordination that does not, quote, unreasonably conflict with players' leagues and club commitments. She's an acting superstar, and she's teaming up with Jessica Biel in her newest project, The Better Sister. We're talking about Elizabeth Banks. The UPenn alumni had the honor of giving a commencement address there yesterday. We spoke with her earlier today, and she gave us all the details about that and what to expect in the new series out next week. Elizabeth Banks, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time. And congratulations, just got an honorary degree from your alma mater, University of Pennsylvania.
I did.
Give us a sense of the idea behind your speech, which you cannot wait to see the students fail.
You know, the main message I wanted to impart was that you're always going to be expanding, hopefully, the idea of who you are and what you can be in the world.
You will fail to get exactly what you want at some point, and that is your best opportunity to clarify what it is you really want and pivot if you have to. In my industry, we like to say, rejection is protection. In time, I always came to see why I didn't get the part.
I thought really small when I was 22 years old. I didn't imagine my life being this big. And I think a lot of young people think like their first job or their second job or their third job is like, that's it, that's their life. And I wanted to remind them, it's probably not going to be. You can't really even imagine how big you can dream. And I think that graduates are in the world at an incredible time. Their idea of what they are right now, they're probably gonna fail at it somewhere, and what a great opportunity to then pivot into something that they can't even imagine yet.
What would have been the best piece of advice that you could have received as a college grad?
They can only say no. So ask for what you want.
That is good.
Worse off.
That's good for me right now.
Yeah.
As an adult.
All they can do is say no.
All right, so let's talk about The Better Sister. It sounds like you and Jessica Biel hit it off right away. Is it because you're both boy moms in part?
Yeah, in part, for sure. We are both boy moms. We did hit it off and bond over that a bit, yes. I also think we're just in a mutual admiration society. I love her work. She's the kindest, most generous person. She's so dedicated to craft. She was really open on set and just so inviting. And as an actor, somebody who's going to create something with somebody, create chemistry, it's just so fun to go to work with somebody who's like that. And so we just had a lot of fun. She lives in a very rarefied world. We are two sisters that have gone two different paths. And I kind of went into it with the mantra that I grew up with in Massachusetts, which is, you're not better than me. And so when you go into something being like, you're not better than me, you're not better than me, you can really poke at somebody in a really fun way.
Is this? Hey, Nikki. I got here as soon as I could.
Are you family?
This is my sister. And Ethan's mother. Biological, Ethan lives with me.
Ethan's other mom, Adam's ex, she's unstable.
What a crazy turn. The world knowing you stole your sister's life.
Oh my God, this is everywhere. At least it's a good photo of us.
And you said that you both really prepare. And so for you, what went into the preparation? Had you read the book by the same name?
Yeah, the book by Alistair Burke is great. It's such a fun beach read. This show, though, this adaptation really expands upon that world. This thing is set in New York, the Hamptons. It's in a very glamorous world. I am a fish out of water. My character, Nikki, comes from Ohio to sort of show up in this grand place after a murder. And I just had a lot of fun with that fish out of water and feeling like kind of remembering back to what that was like for me. This character also, as I said, is a big sister like myself. The father in the piece served in Vietnam. My own father served in Vietnam, so I know what it is to live with someone who came back from a war that nobody was excited about. And I felt a lot of connection points to her, yeah.
So maybe I am the part of my sister that she denies. The slutty side, the eats 25-cent White Castle hamburgers with mom for breakfast side of her, that she just buried. I mean, she buried it.
And you do a lot. It's not just the acting. You produce, you direct. Here, you're acting and also executive producer. During your time off screen, how does that help you on screen and vice versa?
I think work begets work and work informs work. So I love doing things that are not necessarily about the thing I'm doing, because I then get to have an experience that somehow I know is going to work its way into the next thing or the next thing. I always say, even when you don't get a job, or if you do something small in a job, it's never about that one. It's always about the next one. I was in a movie called Seabiscuit, long time ago, one of the first things I ever did, and that same director cast me years later as Effie Trinket in The Hunger Games. So, go to work, do your best, and once, these things all sort of tumble into each other, I find, especially as a creative person. I need a big life outside of my endeavors to bring that creativity to what I'm doing.
And you said it's always about the next thing. What is the next thing for you?
What's next for me? July 10th, Press Your Luck is back on ABC. I cannot wait. Summer fun and games. I love no whammies.
No whammies and stop. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
And you can watch the first season of The Better Sister streaming May 29th on Prime Video. Finally tonight, remembering actor George Wendt, who was best known to millions by just one name. World News Tonight anchor David Muir has more.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Tonight, the famous bar where everybody knew his name. They would say it every time Norm walked in.
How does a beer sound, Norm?
I don't know, Coach. I usually finish them before they get a word in.
The actor George Wendt playing the funny, lovable, beer-loving bar fixture Norm Peterson on Cheers for 11 seasons. He was always there, right at the end of the bar.
Bars can be very sad places. Some people spend their whole lives in a bar. Just yesterday, some guy sat right here next to me for 11 hours.
There was that prickly but lovable friendship with Cliff Clavin, the mailman.
I have impossibly high standards for a woman.
Yeah, she has to like you, right?
The role earning George Wendt 6 consecutive Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actor.
You know what I think the most important thing in life is? It's love. You want to know what I love?
Beer, Norm?
Yeah, have a quick one.
In fact, it was 32 years ago tonight the final episode of Cheers aired. The cast reuniting on last year's Emmys, recreating the bar.
And if somebody has the envelope, we can present the award.
That one right here.
George Wendt was often asked if the beer he was drinking was real. He says it wasn't, but on GMA with Charlie Gibson, he did reveal this.
I did a great deal of preparation for that role. You know, it was a lifetime.
Live the part.
Yeah. You know, I did put on like 75 pounds for the role, much like Robert De Niro did for Raging Bull.
I know. Well, you have to make these sacrifices, and probably learn to drink a little beer. Yeah.
He'd go on to star on Broadway, but it was always his iconic role sitting on that bar stool and his wisecracking one-liners that are remembered most. Tonight, his family saying he passed away peacefully in his sleep at home at the age of 76, saying George was a doting family man, a well-loved friend and confidant to all of those lucky enough to have known him.
Afternoon, everybody.
Oh!
Norman?
But what would you say to a nice beer, Normie?
Going down.
Our thanks to David, and a touching tribute for Wendt tonight. A memorial set up at the Cheers bar in Boston, named for the show. A photo of the actor in a spot reserved at the end of the bar with a drink. Cheers to an unforgettable career. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.